and they have killed hundreds of thousands.
Yes. Do you know something about who is behind it in Sweden? Have you heard something about that?
No idea. But if they're linked to England or the CIA or Canada, and we have a scientist from Australia who was on one of the videos last night. I'm trying to think of his name. Adi, who was in the program. So, and this is the problem. We have scientists who are outside the law.
Yes, that's a problem.
And when you have scientists who can kill people and they cannot be prosecuted, then you have a problem.
You know who is giving the authorization to permit the killing?
Well, it's not the government, because the government are elected and they only stay for 4 years. It has to be somebody above the government, maybe the civil servants, maybe the civil servants in MI5, MI6, the Foreign Office, the military, but it has to be somebody who is unaccountable to the law.
Yes, what I heard in my research when I looked into the case of the murder of Lady Diana, they say it is Prince Philip, the husband of the Queen, who is in charge of MI5 and MI6.
Could well be. I mean, I heard when Lady Diana was dating Dodi Fayed, the young gentleman Dodi Fayed, and she was becoming, it looked, romantically involved.
Yes.
The one thing the British government, and I know this, would not tolerate was a member of the royal family marrying a Muslim.
And being pregnant with them.
And being pregnant with a Muslim.
Because the Queen is a state church chief, and that would be trouble.
So there was no way they were ever going to allow that.
Yes, that's I heard as well. From a British agent who is one of my clients, he told me over a beer, we're not supposed to allow.
Yeah.
And I heard also that the driver was mind controlled.
It is possible. It is perfectly possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely possible. No one will ever know the truth, but I suspect, but you're not the first person to say to me that Prince Philip was behind it.
Yes, yes.
You're not the first person to say that. Because when all is said and done, the royal family is a business.
Yeah, the institution of power.
It is a business, and the royal family, they have one aim, and that is to keep the royal family.
No, and to keep power. It's
and power, yep.
It's not so much money, but
no, not money,
power.
but they will stay the royal family.
Yes, yes, yes. I see that as well. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, that is very interesting. Do you know about technology giving shelter against those microwaves going into the brain or making cancer or heart attacks?
How do you mean giving?
That you are not open for that you perhaps have a device that you hang around the neck, giving a shelter against this.
Right, I don't know how they can work. For the simple reason that when microwaves, if I were microwaving you, I would be sending quite a wide beam to your head. And the microwaves, like all waves, travel in straight lines. They all travel in straight lines. Now, if the microwaves are going into your head from a beam, like if I was shining a torch into your face, if you're hanging something around your neck, that will not deflect a torch beam down to your chest. So the only thing I know that can deflect an electromagnetic wave at the speed it's going, which is the speed of light, unless you have your neutrinos, which theoretically can exceed the speed of light. The only way you can deflect them is to have something with an enormous gravitational field. The only thing known to me in the universe that powerful is a black hole in deep outer space.
But we can't hang it around our
You
neck.
can't hang a black hole around your neck, no. So how something here can stop a wave travelling at the speed of light going for your head, I don't know. I'm not saying the people that make them are lying. I've never tested one, and they may work. I can't see how they work, and if they do, I would love an explanation.
Yes.
I really would.
Yes. Well, we heard that the East German Stasi, the Secret Service,
Yeah.
DDR, they had credit card-like pieces they could put beneath the collar here,
Yeah.
and that should have given a shelter. You have never heard about that?
The only way I think something like that could work is if they transmit outwards. If you have something and it is transmitting outwards, then you will have what in the war what is known as jamming, because you could jam radar. If you send a frequency back and it matches the frequency coming in, you have destructive interference. And destructive interference, the waves cancel each other out,
Yes.
and it ends up as heat. That is the only way I know to destroy a wave, is to jam it. So if they're given something that sends out a little frequency, that will jam it and that will work. But if it's something under the collar, I don't know how it would work.
Yeah, yeah. Have you heard about scalar waves and other form of waves compared to electromagnetic?
Yeah, now, with my classical physics degree, a scalar is a measurement on a ruler that doesn't move. It is not a vector that does
no
move.
direction.
Yeah, but I do know that Tesla waves can now be described as scalar, which are your neutrinos. And I know when I did at university, the nuclear and atomic physics, I can remember to this day doing calculations with neutrinos.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can remember doing calculations with neutrinos, and I can remember it. I can remember the lecture because the calculations came out faster than the speed of light.
Yes, exactly.
And I asked the professor, and I said, "This is impossible. I must be wrong." And he said, must forgive me. And she said, "No." She said, "They will come out faster than light. They are particles which, as far as we know, can exceed the speed of light." We debated this, and we left it open that maybe they existed, and maybe they could travel faster than the speed of light, or maybe there's something we don't understand, and maybe they do travel at the speed of light, but they're not electromagnetic waves, they're particles, and it may be possible to accelerate a particle. Because theoretically, if you now start to travel faster and faster and you reach the speed of light, what happens is your mass increases. And your mass will increase and slow you down. And if you go faster and faster, your mass increases more and more and more, but you can never reach the speed of light. They find this with the cyclotrons.
Yeah.
That the particles, their mass increases. Now, maybe with your neutrinos, even with the mass increasing, they can still accelerate. Or maybe the mass doesn't increase, and they can accelerate. And nobody knows the answer to that in the world. But I do know that they are so fast and so small And the professor said to me, travelling from outer space, they can go right through the planet, through the centre, out the other side, and not interact with a single atom. They won't touch anything. They won't touch the atoms in the ground. They won't touch the atoms in the lava, the magma, the iron core. They come out the other side. They won't touch a single atom in the oceans, and they whiz straight through. And I thought, it's just almost unbelievable.
That's why those neutrino traps are so big, because they try desperately to catch some.
Yeah, and they probably can catch them.
Yes, but there must be a kind of technology. My research in mind control gave me a clue when the victims told me, the targeted individuals, the first thing we do when we feel they are microwaving us, we go into a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
And that is not a success, because they are still targeted. And how is that working? Because usually an electromagnetic wave is not passing through a Faraday cage. And then I got the hint that, they are using scalar waves based on neutrinos. And then, of course, neutrino can pass.
Yeah, because it has no charge.
Yeah.
So it can go straight through.
So in some way, not every technology, but some of the technology targeting people must be based on scalar waves.
Yep, and there may be, to my knowledge, there are 16 subatomic particles. They may be using different subatomic particles as well. So I would agree with you, that is possible.
And one of your big messages is that the cell phone technology and the Wi-Fi, the wireless computer which we have, is very practical, and there are a lot of danger connected to this, and people don't know it.
There is a lot of danger. As a scientist, microwaves react with water, and we are made of water. Our brains are made of water. So any microwaves going in the body must react with the water. And when you react with the water will change, the water goes around the cells, the water-based layers. You change the surface of the cell. And when you change the surface of the cell, you change the signal transduction and the cell cycle timing. And it goes on to the DNA, and you can change everything by microwaves.
Yes. And therefore people get cancer and other problems when they live close to this broadcasting devices on the roofs, on the houses, and so on. And in your speech yesterday, you came with compelling evidence that it is connected to that.
There are 14 epidemiological studies, one even carried out by the industry itself, and they said this causes cancer. There are 5 High Court cases that prove this. So
only in
no, 3 in Austria, 1 in Italy, and where was the other one? I can't think of the country with the other one. But there are 5, to my knowledge, and 19 other legal judgments where proof wasn't required. Scientifically, a magistrate or a judge who's not a High Court judge or a mayor listened to the evidence and said, turn it off, take it down.
Yes. And then it was better.
Then it was better.
And you told us yesterday about the farmer in Africa.
Oh yes, yeah. Is this the one to do with the ants, or the one to do with the American military base? There were 2. But the one with the ants. He came to me and said, would you come to the field with me, Barry? And I said, of course I will. Lovely gentleman. And I went to the field, and he said to me, what do you hear? And then I said, well, there's a sort of an animal baboon in the trees over there. and there's something moving over there that I hoped wasn't a lion. And he said, "You shouldn't be able to hear me speak." He said, "Normally all of these bushes would be covered with bees pollinating." And he said, "As soon as that transmitter went up, I lost my bees." He said, "And within a few months, my ants were lost. They disappeared." And we know that microwaves affect bees enormously. I've given a whole lecture on just bees. We know that the navigational system of ants is based on the Earth's magnetic field, the same used by bats, birds, fish, other creepy crawlies, and the microwaves are too powerful for the navigation system to work. It's the cryptochrome mechanism in the brain. It's too powerful. And so as soon as you put an animal in a magnetic field, they get lost. And they can't come back, or they will leave to find an area where they feel comfortable again. And this gentleman, and this is right across this country, he lost all of his fruit, which means he's now got to buy fruit, or which means the country has to start importing fruit. And he's lost his trees because the ants, whilst they crawled all over the plants, they licked the sap. They didn't eat the plants, and any locusts or insects that landed on the plants, the ants attacked them to protect their plants. So he's totally lost his farm, and that isn't one farm. All of the farms are suffering, which means the country now has to start importing food because it's not growing it, and it has to start importing drugs because people become sick, and it has to start importing medicines because in this country they were all vitamin C producing plants, and once you lack vitamin C, you're looking at scurvy. So now you've got to try and prevent scurvy. And the countries that are causing the problem, in this case the United States, they are the very first people to come in and offer aid.
Yeah, thing for me to hear yesterday that especially women are targeted, and that they suffer more because the follicles are deformed.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they do know this because experiments were carried out, and I've read the papers, experiments were carried out in the Cold War on pregnant women with different levels of microwave irradiation to see how many genetically deformed children could be born, how many miscarriages. I know with the miscarriages it was 57.7% of women had miscarriages from low-level radiation. And so when they start putting Wi-Fi in schools, and you've got little girls in schools with all of the eggs in their ovaries that are going to be their future generation, you know, I contacted the authorities and said, you know, you can't do this, because you're going to produce genetically deformed children and miscarriages. They totally ignored me, and they're still putting Wi-Fi in schools. And the evidence is there that the girls, when they get married and they have children, there is a very high risk of a genetically born girl. But the DNA in the eggs, in the follicles, they suffer 10 times more than all of the rest of the DNA in the body. So even if they use a safety level, it's a factor of 10 out anyway. And it's irreparable. It can never be repaired, that particular mitochondrial DNA. Which means that if you have a girl with the DNA damage, her child will get the damage, and then her child, right the way down the female line until there are no more females left in that line. And this is what they're doing. And they know with Wi-Fi in schools, because a girl can be irradiating her ovaries from the age of 5, if she goes to university, to 24, 19 years. She's sitting in front of Wi-Fi and it's transmitting straight through the ovaries if you look at how they sit.
And how was the boys, the sperms also can...
Well, boys are slightly different because girls are born with all of their eggs and they can be irradiated from birth. Boys will not produce sperms until puberty. But in saying that, there are several papers that now show that with Wi-Fi the sperms are also damaged. Yes. So you have the sperms and the eggs, and of course if you've got a damaged sperm and a damaged egg, it's horrific.
Yes.
The thing is, they know this, and the only reason they're putting Wi-Fi in schools is because if you're going to put it into, let's say in Denmark, 10,000 schools, I don't know, it's cheaper to use Wi-Fi than get workmen to drill holes to put the fibre optic cable or the phone cable through. You save maybe £1 million. And that's why they're doing it. And it's cheaper now to save £1 million and have genetically damaged children in 35 years' time.
I also heard already more than 10 years ago that don't give a cell phone to your children.
That's true, yep.
Because why is it especially dangerous?
Well, children are growing. The nervous system is growing. The bones are growing. The immune system is growing. The brain is growing. Everything in a child is growing. And if you put microwaves through growing parts of the body, you can affect the growth. You can deform the bones. You can alter the chemistry of the bone marrow that makes the immune system. You can affect the way the brain works. And these are growing, so if you change it, it's going to be changed for life, unless it can repair itself. So what you're doing is you're effectively changing the growth of the child. And a child isn't fully grown until they're 28. 28. The last thing to form is the clavicle, the shoulder blade. So really, if you want to be strict here, a child should not be exposed to microwaves until they are 28.
Sure, yeah.